Hey guys, so in the previous video we saw how we can handle multiple constructors and use them to our advantage. We saw something like this. Now in this video we are going to talk about what is called as getters and setters. So let's get started. Now what I'm going to do is, first of all, we've seen that to set a value, basically Ben's dot mileage equals 45. So we can do something like this. You just mention the name of the object and set its value by however you want it to be, and then so something like this. And if we try to run, what's going to happen is it's going to update the values based on this, right? So now look at this. Ben's mileage is 45. You see that the mileage being 45 for Ben's. This is actually not a good practice. Why? I'll tell you why. But before that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of that, and here from now on I'm going to say private. Ooh, what private? Well, you don't have to worry much about it. Just type private and private. Okay, now so we have said everything is private. Okay, and so here is the thing now. So what is private? Basically, private means, so this field, mileage field, price field, doors field, whichever you call it as private, can only be accessed within that particular class. You cannot access mileage in a different class, and that is what we are trying to do here. You see the problem? So if I just move my cursor, you see that IntelliJ says doors has private access in car, which means only the car class can make use of doors variable. So how do we fix this? And in a moment I'll tell you what is meaning of true encapsulation. In the last video I added this term called encapsulation in a very vague sense, and let me explain that in this video along with getters and setters. Alright, now what I'm going to do in the car class is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say public void set mileage. Did you notice how IntelliJ intelligently helped me out? So set mileage, and then mileage, as we could remember, is a double, and then let's accept mileage parameter, and then say this dot mileage equals mileage. Okay, so what are we doing in this method? We are trying to set the mileage from the parameter that we get in. So this dot mileage is going to be mileage. Now this is called as a setter for mileage field. Okay, now let us do the opposite of setter. So what is the opposite of a setter? The opposite of a setter is what is called as a getter. So let us create a getter for mileage field. Okay, so what is this going to do? Let's see, public void. This time I'm not going to do void. This time I'm going to do double get mileage. You notice how it's helping me out, and then I'm not going to pass any parameters here. Now what I'm going to do is return, since we made it double here, we are going to return a double value, which is what is the double value? So we are trying to return the mileage. You can use again this keyword here as well, but it's a good practice if you just use this keyword. I don't want to use it at this point because I'm only referencing one mileage, and when I reference mileage, it's by default going to point to mileage up here. Alright, now so what we did with setter is we are setting the mileage. What we are trying to do with the getter is we are returning the already set mileage. Now let us come back to main. Now I'm just going to comment out all of these, right? And as a matter of fact, I'm also going to comment out these two lines as well. I am trying to go and say mileage, okay, the mileage of the Benz being get mileage. And let's see what is going to happen if we run this. Aha, look at that, the mileage of the Benz, the mileage being 10.25. That's nice, right? Why? Because we set the mileage here and then we are retrieving it. And if I, for clarity's sake, I'll try to do mileage, M-I-L-A-G-E, like how, oh yeah, like how I used to try. You see this? Again, it says mileage is having a private access. So let me get it back. Now, why do we even want to do this? You can ask me, Rakshit, why do you even want to consider doing this? Because, if I just, use the parameter like how I used to previously, if I say benz.mileage, it's going to be good, right? Why do I want to create a function? Why do I want to access it? And, why do I want to do all of those extra works? Well, the answer to your question is, so if I don't set this private and if I make this public, then it means that, there are, by the way, there are three types of access specifiers. So the first one is called private. The second one is called public. However, the order seems to be fine. You can do it. So private, public, protected. So let me give you a quick intro about this. Private is restricting a field particularly for that class, while public is allowing anybody to access that particular field. So for example, in this case, mileage can be accessed by anybody throughout the program, and then protected is going to be accessed only by those who inherit the car class. You don't have to worry too much about inheritance at this point, but you just remember protected is used for during the inheritance. Okay, I'm not just going to type it all over again. Okay, so that is the basic introduction to access specifiers, and it's a good practice, and you should, as a good programmer, learn to have good programming practices, and it is a good practice to make this private. I'll tell you why. What if I just make it public? If I make it public, anybody can access it. Anyone who is trying to mess up with my program, they can just access it. It's like your bank account. Do you want your bank account to be accessed by anybody outside? You definitely don't want. Then who do you want it to be accessed by? It's just going to be accessed by only you, right? And then if you give permission to another party, then that party has the access to your bank account, and that is what is called in as a analogy, we can think of it like inheritance. So anyway, we are not going so far right now. That's a bad idea to make it public here. Okay, so since this is already made private, and we set the getters and setters for mileage field, let us try and set the getters and setters for the price field and the doors field as well. And by the way, you know what? So this case, okay, so let me just do it quickly. Public integer set number, okay, set doors, DOORS. You see, set doors. Okay, that's the field I'm trying to access and set up. So this is going to be, remember, when you want to set, please make it a void. So when you're talking about a void, it means it is not going to return anything. I hope you know that. So public void set doors, and then what we are trying to do, we are trying to set the value. So if you want to set the value, you should be able to have that value in hand to set, right? So that is why we have int doors. Okay, now this dot, come on guys, what should I do? This dot doors equals doors. That's it. So we set the value for the doors. Now since we have already set the doors, let us try to get the value whatever was set for the doors, which is called as the getter for the doors. How do I do it? Again, it's public int get doors. So, and for getting the value, you don't have to pass in any argument, because you don't want to accept any value in hand. Rather, you want to push out whatever you already have. So this time we'll say return doors. That's it. So this is returning the doors. All right. Now, you know, IntelliJ is pretty good. So it reduces a lot of job that programmers have to do. So, and one such example is if we go to generate and then we say setter and getter, it automatically shows me all the fields. So what is left out here is the price field. And if I say okay, then notice IntelliJ created this block of code for us. And you know what? For the sake of explaining this, let me get rid of all the setters and getters. Look at the magic now. I'm going to go to right click and say generate getter and setter. Notice, since I deleted the previous getters and setters, now IntelliJ has recognized there is no getter, there is no setter for any field. So it's showing me all the fields that has the ability to have a getter and a setter. And if I just choose all the fields that I want to have a getter and setter and choose OK, and that's it. So this much, so much of code IntelliJ generated for you. Don't you think it's awesome? Yes, it is, right? Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a comment here and say getters and setters. Okay, great. And you know what? I don't like to have so many constructors at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all the constructors. Okay, and you know, so far we have made some progress. Let's proceed further. So here is our getters and setters, and that's it. So far we have set up everything, right? Notice this is highlighted in a different color. Can you tell me why? Because we are using get mileage here, and if you don't use a method, it is going to say in a different, it's going to show us in a different color. But you know, so that is one good thing about IntelliJ. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get, okay, so since I took out those constructors, it started showing me all of those underlines, which indicates there is a syntax error. Okay, so again, let's create our Benz car. This time it's having new car, and that's it. Notice I am not going to put in any argument. Why? Because I deleted all the constructors. Does it mean that IntelliJ, does it mean that Java does not have a constructor? No, it just means that we are not using the constructor explicitly. It doesn't mean that, oh, if you take out the constructor is taken out. No, 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 no. What's happening is whenever Java encounters the new keyword, it is going to automatically call the constructor implicitly. That's what I meant, you know? Implicitly, as in it is going to call itself without our knowledge. Okay, now, so let's get rid of extra code. This is not required. Okay, so since we have all the getters and setters in place, let us play with them now. Benz dot, so let's start from setting the mileage. So set mileage, and then it's expecting a double value, so let's say 20.25. 20.25, come on. My keyboard is giving me some trouble. Okay, so here it is. 20, why? 20.25. I don't know, guys. Sometimes it's acting weird. I don't know why. Sometimes you can't expect everything to work for you, right? All right. So Benz dot. So we have set the mileage. Okay, and let us set the number of doors. Set doors, and inside that we have 5 doors. Okay, what kind of Benz is that? I don't know. So Benz dot doors. So let us set the price for the Benz car. So price is an integer value. Let's say 50K. That's a pretty expensive Benz, don't you think? All right, now let us try to uncomment these lines. The only thing I have to do is, instead of using doors, I should say get doors. Likewise, to get the value of the price, what should I do? Oh, and by the way, my bad. I don't know, this insert key is giving me a lot of trouble. Please bear with me. It's just ridiculous to do the same thing. But I can't help. DOORS, doors. Let's close it. And then here we have, let's get rid of that. And this one as well. Benz dot set, we got the doors, right? So let's get the price, right? Get price with so much dollars, DOLLARS. Oh, come on, this keyboard. Okay, so we have gotten the price, and we have also gotten the mileage. Let's run and check it out. Voila, look at that. Benz has 5 doors. Benz is priced at $50,000, and then the mileage being 20.25. So that's it. Don't you think it's awesome? So that is the power of getters and setters. So I remember you telling in the last video I spoke about encapsulation. That was not true encapsulation. So what is true encapsulation is, basically encapsulation is kind of adding a security layer. Look at this. Can we access this mileage field in the main? Like I showed you previously, we can't. We can't do something like Benz dot mileage. No way, because it's a private, right? And that is the good programming practice, and that is how we are trying to encapsulate it. Because so this is why we have getters and setters, to have encapsulation in place as a practice. So in getters and setters, we are trying to access, if you notice, get mileage. What is this doing? It is returning a private object, right? It's returning a private field. So were you able to return a private field in this main method? No. But here, because of this get mileage function being present in the car class, we are able to return the mileage. Likewise, we are able to set the mileage because this set mileage belongs to the car class, and therefore this set mileage method is privileged enough to set the value which is a private field. So this is how we enforce encapsulation. How do we enforce encapsulation? Making sure all the fields are set private. Okay, and this gives us encapsulation. Yeah, so this is a very important concept in object-oriented programming, and that's it. I hope you understood getters and setters and the reason behind making them private and what is encapsulation. Notice we have tied the objects. Actually, I shouldn't use the term objects. I'm sorry, guys. I should use the term field. So we have tied the field, the fields and the methods into one big unit called as class, and these fields are not freely accessible by anybody outside. So this is how we enforce encapsulation, right? And that is the reason behind the getters and setters, and I hope it makes sense when we talk about getters and setters in the next class. Because always remember, and one more very important tip, when you are trying to set a value, make sure that it is going to return nothing, because that's what it does. The set method, any setter, is not going to return anything. So it is going to be always void, and any getter, obviously, because it's trying to push out a value from the class, right? So obviously it is supposed to push out, which means it is going to have a return type. So always remember, I want to make this comment here as well. So getters returns nothing, so we have to make it a void. Got it? While setters, what do? While setters, they basically, oops, what did I do? What did I just do? I said getters. What did I even do? It's funny that I make mistakes like this. I'm sorry, guys. So getters, what is a getter going to do? It is going to return, right? So it is having a return type, and it is going to return something. So therefore it is going to have a return type. While setters, what are setters doing? They are just setting the value, right? So it is not having any return type, so does not return anything. So, and just to let you know, you'll find the source code along with these comments, whatever I've done here, and you make use of it. So that's it. I hope you got value from this video, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe and share. We'll see in the next upcoming videos the further concepts. All right, have a good day, guys.